Again, we're finding out some stuff, one of which is if you try to pause a Google Hangout and go off air, you're done with it. So if you're following the video, it's broken into two parts. I'll see if I can download and then splice them back together. And on the audio, so you understand what that little glitch was. So we're talking about Proverbs 31, we're on verse 28 now. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband, he praises her. Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. A great woman is worthy of blessings and praise. A great woman is worthy of blessings, so she should receive blessings. A great woman is worthy of praise, so she should receive praise. Now, one of the keys in here, and this has to do with all human endeavor, we as human beings, for whatever reason, seem very quick to criticize. We're very quick to go negative. We're very quick to insult. When we're offended by something, then we're very quick to feel riled up and to have a problem with it, and to learn to keep quiet. The silver rule of, whatever you hate, don't do. That don't do unto others what you want others to not do unto you, to do no harm. Sometimes we just forget that. And the part that's even harder on this is sometimes we forget the flip side. So not only often do we forget to kind of hold back the criticism, the classic, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, which isn't, of course, entirely true. But if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all until you've had time to decide, is this really necessary and what is the best way to communicate this? That part probably is true. Not that you never say anything bad, but you have to think about it. What is the best way to say it? Because it still needs to be effective, but I also want to be as nice as possible. I don't want to damage the relationship any more than necessary. The part that we also tend to forget is to do the blessings, to do the praise. When something is worthy of praise, forgetting to compliment people, forgetting to comment on things that go well, forgetting to comment on things that are impressive. Now, here's one of the things that gets to be even more of a problem in our society, is when we do remember to do it, how often is it just dismissed? You see someone and say, like, hey, that's a sharp-looking tie. Oh, yeah, whatever, I guess, I don't really like ties. Excuse me, you just missed the compliment. It's like, wow, I like what you did with your hair. It's like, oh, yeah, this is all dirty. I don't really like it. Like, you just toss the compliment again. When you do things like this, when you dismiss people's compliments, what you're really saying is, will you please stop complimenting me? And guess what? They will. And it gets worse than that, because when people get that kind of negative feedback, there's a natural tendency for them to stop complimenting anybody. Because when you start getting negative feedback again and again and again in a row, it's very easy to generalize that and just stop doing it. So if you give a compliment, it gets dismissed. You give a compliment to someone else, it gets dismissed. You give a compliment to a third person, it gets dismissed. You just, well, why bother even complimenting people? So if that happens, you still compliment people. Still talk about their attributes. Still talk about their accomplishments. Still, when they do something impressive, feel free to mention it. So when someone is worthy of blessings and praise, bless them and give them praise. Verse 30, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. A woman who fears the Lord, she shall be respected. So here we see a great partner, a great woman respects ultimate truths. Ultimate truths. Now, the charm is deceitful means that public behavior may or may not tell you what things are really like behind closed doors. Most socialites are charming in public. Most people are nice to your face. So the charm is deceitful doesn't mean that just because someone's charming that they're being deceitful. But what it does mean is that deceitful people will still be charming. Basically what this boils down to is like the con men, is the bad guys try to look like good guys. The good guys look like good guys because they're good guys. The bad guys look like good guys because they get good at pretending to be good guys, so you don't think of them as bad guys. So what ends up happening, though, is sometimes we learn to distrust everybody. So the charm is deceitful just means you can't trust just the charm. Is that doesn't tell you if they're a good guy or a bad guy, if they're a great woman or a not so great woman. Is it just someone who knows how to behave in public, or is it someone who really is this way? Because socialites learned how to be charming. Beauty is vain. This does not mean that being beautiful is being vain. What it does mean is the external beauty cannot be the foundation of one's worth. That you cannot base your value as a human being, your value as a woman, on what does my face look like? What does my body look like? What is my hair like? What kind of clothes do I have? Am I in the latest fashion? How do I stand up to the supermodel that I see in the magazine who doesn't even look like that because she had to diet and peak for that, and then they airbrushed her and photoshopped her and distorted her own image, so even the actress doesn't look like the actress and the model doesn't look like the model. But that's going to be the standard I'm going to measure myself by, and if I don't look like it, I'm going to feel bad about myself. You don't do that. That's vain. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. I mean, Ecclesiastes, 1:2b. It means that's not the value that we may think it is. Being beautiful doesn't make you a better woman. It just makes you a beautiful woman. That is not an element of worth as a human being. It's wonderful. I love beautiful women. They add a tremendous amount of beauty to the world, but it doesn't mean that as a human being she's worth anymore. It just means that she's beautiful. I personally appreciate the kind of beauty that is earned, the kind of beauty that shines out through the eyes and the smile, because it's a matter of who she is as a human being. I appreciate the kind of beauty of the things that she chose. Like, I like a woman who has a beautiful body because she has chosen to stay in shape, not just because she was born with it. So when you see some, cute, 19-year-old bikini body, kind of workout queen, you go, okay, you're 19. Now, when you've had 5 kids, and you get back in shape, now that's impressive. Now, you may not look the same as the 19-year-old who's being hired to be a sports model. You're not supposed to. The fact that you are in pretty good shape after having that many children is really impressive. And so that's the things that I personally look at. And most men who kind of mature in their appreciation of feminine beauty understand this. That beauty is vain. It's not the foundation of who she is. That, the woman doesn't choose her genetics. The woman doesn't choose her bone structure. And a woman has a life to live that isn't going to be 100% devoted just to how she looks, at least one hopes. Unless, of course, that's her profession. I mean, if she's a professional model, she has to do that. If she's a professional actress, she probably has that as a component of her lifestyle. But for most people, you have work to do. You have kids to take care of. You have a life to live. And that this needs to be kind of an adjunct, something that gets added in when and if there's time. Even if you're trying to prioritize it, other things are going to be a higher priority. You're not going to skip out on your kids because, well, kids, I know that you need mom to feed you, but no dinner tonight because I have to go do my workout. You're not going to do stuff like that. So the beauty is vain doesn't mean that looking beautiful is being vain, but it does mean it cannot be the foundation of your worth. Verse 31. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. So a great partner, a great woman, deserves the fruit of her labors. Very often, sometimes, what tends to happen is we forget who's earning stuff. And that we tend to treat everything that someone does as automatically belonging to us. Now, there is a sense of, whatever you do and whatever I do contributes to an ours. Where it becomes a problem is where what you do contributes to the mine. And so in this case, in a day and an age where men would control the household resources, the household wealth that was considered his, it says, give her the product of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. Her works praise her in the gates. So if she did it, she gets credit for it. And if she earned it, she should have control over it. She gets the product of her hands. In a day and age where the man had the authority that whatever she got was his to control, he could do whatever he wanted with it. He was held responsible for taking care of the family. But in practical application, he could be selfish with it. He could treat her income as equal to his income under his control for anything he wanted. Now, even in this day and age, we have had similar problems when children are earning money. When you have minors earning money and then the adults are in control. And when it comes to like child actors, we had issues arising where the children were sometimes earning hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, and the parents were blowing it. because the kids didn't have access to all of their own accounts because they were kids. And we actually had to pass laws that protected the child's income, so that the child wouldn't be earning millions in their youth and then become an adult and it's all gone because, you know, mom and dad and stepmom, stepdad, boyfriends, girlfriends all blew it. So a great woman deserves the fruit of her labors. She deserves to have benefit from what she does. Now, there's a tendency in society still, you would like to think it wouldn't still be this way, but it tends to be, where you have a man and a woman, they're married to one another, he's working full time, so he's got 40 hours to 60 hours a week of work to do, he's gone for his commute and all of that, so he's earning all the money, and then she's the housewife. She's the stay-at-home mom. So her life centers around the children, it centers around the home. Under those circumstances, it might be completely reasonable if she does most of, or even all of, the inside house chores, because that's her job. That's what she has. And is it going to be done perfectly? Kind of depends on the kids, right? If there's no children at home and she's a permanent housewife with no kids to take care of, okay, now that might be very reasonable. If there's a baby to take care of, you know what? Sometimes you have a choice between taking care of the baby or taking care of the house. I lean toward take care of the baby. Here's where I have a problem with it, though. Also, very often, you have a man who's working, 40, 60 hours a week, and so he goes to work between his job time and his commute time, and he kind of expects her to do everything because she's at home. Okay, that's reasonable. But then she gets a job. Now, she's also working 40 hours a week, 40, 60 hours when you factor in the commute and stuff. And somehow, the wife, with a stunning amount of consistency, still ends up with the lion's share of the household to take care of, doing the shopping, doing the cleaning, doing the cooking, doing the dishes, doing the laundry. How does that happen? A great partner deserves the fruit of her labors, and part of the fruit of the labors is, I'm doing all the household stuff because you're at work and I'm at home. But if both of us are at work, then both of us need to split these other duties. I think that's reasonable. I mean, just think about it reversed. So what if, as the man of the house, what if you were doing everything? Say you're unemployed, you're looking for work, but you're unemployed, she's working full time. But okay, they're kind of, I'm home, I'll run the kids to school, I'll pick them up, I'll take care of the house. While I'm getting my resumes out, getting my applications out, I'm kind of in this phase now where I've got nothing to do but wait. I mean, I'm just in the process. And, the next contract doesn't start for, another month. And so, I'll take care of the stuff. Well, then imagine then your contract does come up, you begin your work, and she still expects you to do everything. She still expects you to take the kids to school, pick them up, take care of the house, take care of the yard, take care of the shopping, take care of the cooking, take care of the cleaning, take care of the, just like when you were at home full time for that month off, but now you're working. I think most human beings would realize, well, that's kind of offensive. And yet somehow we don't think twice about doing that to the average wife, which I find incredibly unfortunate. And so those things need to be split based largely upon what is your total contribution to the home. And there's two ways to measure contribution to the home, by the way. One is in dollars. Now, this one gets to be a problem. Because if you're just measuring it in dollars, then the person who's earning more per hour of their time away from home feels like they don't have to do anything else. The other one is time. So say, for instance, we'll just go with even though the statistic isn't true in individual professions, there's a lot of issues with it. We'll just go with the median numbers. We'll say that she's working for 77 cents on the dollar for what he's working for. And so he's, say, bringing home $1,000 in a week, and she's bringing home $770 in a week. Well, he could go, well, I am earning most of the money, so you need to do most of the work. The other way to look at it is like both of you are spending 40 hours a week at a workplace. Both of you are commuting. So both of you are contributing 40 to 60 hours a week of your outside work time to generate revenue for the household. That is an equal amount of time investment. Now, the fact that one ends up getting more money for that than the other isn't a factor of the time investment. That's a factor of the pay scale. And very often, one of the reasons women make less money than men is that their work tends to be more temporary. They tend to gravitate to some of the lower paying jobs because part of their pay is the flexibility of the job and the ability to go in, to come out, to adjust the schedule around the kids and the family. And so part of their quote unquote paycheck is non-financial. So they might not make the same dollars sometimes, and sometimes for good reason, sometimes for no good reason. That no good reason part, that needs to be fixed. So when this is happening, when you have an equal investment outside the household, there also ought to be an equal investment of time in the household, an equal investment of effort in the household. Because a great partner deserves the fruit of her labors. And one of the fruit of her labors is, look, if I'm working outside just as much as you are, then I need you working as much inside as I am. That sounds fair, right? And of course, let her works praise her in the gates is a great partner should be publicly edified. Publicly edified. So if she's doing good stuff, talk about it. If she's doing good stuff, I mean, praise her, lift her up. Now, this is another factor that tends to come from more insecure men. Is there's a tendency, especially during a season where the wife might be dramatically outperforming the husband in any number of ways, that some men have issues with this. And I was talking with a husband one time where his problem was his wife was earning more money than him. Both of them were in the same profession. She went to work right out of college. She had a bachelor's degree. She became a CPA. She goes to work. She starts making money. Well, he had also graduated, and he had tried some other stuff and went back and got his master's degree. Well, then he's in the same profession she's in, but because he did his master's degree and has spent some summers doing some other things, he doesn't have the same seniority. So she's like 2 or 3 years ahead of him on the pay scale here. Now, his pay scale started higher than her pay scale started at because he's coming in with a master's while she started with a bachelor's. But in the 3 years, she was ahead of him. And he had to grapple with that. Just as a man, that was an issue for him for a while. In fact, it was worse back in the 70s, where one of the surest ways to kill a woman's career was to pay her more than her husband made. Then with stunning regularity, all of a sudden, her husband needed to move. And typically back in the 70s, the wife would follow with the husband wherever the husband's job went, even if she was making more money. And they noticed this pattern in the 60s and the 70s. I would like to think that we've outgrown that, and we probably have it as a culture, but not necessarily in individual households. So edifying a partner who's actually doing better than you, who's actually beating you in your own area, that can be hard on a male ego. Needs to be done anyway. A great partner should be publicly edified. That her works praise her in the gates. What she did should praise her in the gates because she did it and she deserves the credit. And that's part of the fruit of her labors. So we're talking about great women, great partners, great wives. The Proverbs 31 woman, while specifically referring to a wife, can also be applied in any number of ways to women in general. And you'll notice a lot of these things that you might not normally think about when you go through the Proverbs 31 woman, that she's not this very quiet, submissive, male-dominated, mousy woman. She's a powerful woman. She's a capable woman. She has control of her own resources. She's doing her own things. That she has a strength and a resilience to her. And she may or may not be physically gorgeous. She may or may not be completely charming, but she realizes that it's not about the charm, it's not about the beauty, it's about her character. It's about who she is. It's about what she does. And as a woman, you can see that God's really elevating women by society standards around that time. A woman gets to do business. A woman gets to buy property. A woman gets to plant a vineyard. A woman gets to have staff. Well, wealthy women had staff back then. But a woman gets to keep the fruit of her own labors. A woman gets to keep the money from her own business. A woman actually gets credit for what the woman did. How unusual that would have been thousands of years ago. And if we take that and consider what would be unusual today for equality between men and women. And as we continue this series, we're actually going to start getting into some of the verses, some of the passages that seem to really put women down. That women tend to complain about, and men tend to use to bludgeon women over the head and say, you can't do that. You're not allowed to speak in church. You have to submit. The wife, submit to your husband, means that she's in the passenger seat and he's the driver. He can do whatever he wants and she's just along for the ride. And I've actually heard that teaching. It's kind of scary to me. And I've heard the teaching that, women just need to be quiet in church. That they just should show up, be sweet, be nice. Okay, maybe help us take care of the kids because none of the guys want to do that. But your job is not to argue, not to think, not to have an opinion. And of course, QX being QX, we disagree with that. So we're going to continue to dig into this. And as we dig into this more, you'll kind of see more of what was really going on. What was God doing here? Now, why all this thing? This came up again last week as one of the more profound things is when society shifts, it may be time to take another look at issues. That if you have a traditional view of something, it's easy to hold a traditional view when it's never an issue. But when it becomes an issue, then you need to take a look and say, okay, the traditional view, whether it was right or wrong, it didn't really matter because the structure of society kind of locked us into this mode. Well, now that the structure of society is creating more freedom, more flexibility, more options and opportunity, now it might be a good time to go take a look at the issue because now the right or wrongness of the issue really does make a difference. It makes a significant difference, a hugely meaningful difference. And so that's part of what we're doing here is we're taking a look at some of the traditional things, traditional views, a lot of things a lot of people have heard, and we're diving into them and we're saying, okay, when we unpack things from the Bible, is there another view here? Are there things here that have commonly been missed? And as we explore that, we begin to find that God has always had high regard for women. And God has always elevated women as compared to the women in the surrounding culture. So this is Pastor Scott Conway at QX Church. Find us online at qxchurch.org. And thus endeth our Google Hangout experiment on this lesson. Thank you.